Who are the Métis? In just around 5 minutes, I'm going to give you a quick overview of who the Métis Nation are, a bit about their history, and who Louis Riel was, and the ongoing controversy of self-identifying as Métis. Of course, this is the most surface-level overview of this group possible. I could never do justice to the rich history, vibrant culture, and enduring presence the Métis Nation has here in Canada. If you want more of that, I've included a video in the description below where you can hear a bit more about what it means to be Métis from someone in the Métis Nation. The word Métis literally means mixed, or person of mixed heritage in French. They are one of Canada's 3 recognized Indigenous groups, and their mixed European and Indigenous ancestry creates a unique cultural identity. And while Métis is used to describe people of mixed European and Indigenous ancestry across Canada, we'll talk about how self-identifying as Métis is not always the same thing as being a part of the Métis Nation necessarily. To understand their story, we need to start with 2 main groups of people: Indigenous peoples in what is now called Canada, and European fur traders. The Métis emerged in the 18th century, primarily in the Red River Valley in Manitoba, or present-day Manitoba, when European fur traders married and had children with Indigenous women. The Métis Nation would become a distinct people who were crucial to Canada's economy in the Great Lakes region. Their nation wasn't very old when a foundational war for Canada would break out, as Americans invaded from the south. Now, Britain is busy fighting its own war in France against Napoleon at this time, so they send just a few soldiers to help defend Canada from the invasions. Without the help of the Métis and First Nations peoples, Canada would have fallen before there even was a Canada. Most Métis fought on the Canadian side during the war and filled out entire units in some cases: the Corps of Canadian Voyageurs, the Mississippi Volunteers, the Michigan Fencibles, and more. The Métis were crucial to capturing Fort Mackinac in 1812 as they navigated war canoes to land on the heavily guarded island without being detected, and were able to remove the civilian population and aim cannons at the fort. Now, the Americans were taken completely by surprise. By the time all this happened, they still didn't even know that war had broken out. The Americans would never capture Mackinac Island back from the British. They ended up surrendering without a shot even fired. It only fell back into American hands when the war ended. We need to talk about Louis Riel. Louis Riel was a passionate and influential leader of the Métis during the 19th century. At this time, the Hudson's Bay Company had influential control over a huge swath of Canada known as Rupert's Land. Their fur trade monopoly in this region was challenged only by the Métis in the Red River settlement. As tensions mounted between the 2 groups, the Dominion of Canada was eyeing up all that sweet land out west for development, and the Hudson's Bay Company graciously agreed to transfer Rupert's Land to the Canadian government. But hold on. How did a company own this land? When did they buy it? What gives them a claim to this huge chunk of territory that is already inhabited by Métis and their Cree, Saulteaux, and Assiniboine relatives? That's exactly what the Métis people asked themselves as they prepared to resist. Louis Riel played a central role in the Red River Resistance of 1869 to 1870, leading the Métis in their struggle for rights and recognition against the Canadian government. Riel and his colleagues established their own government in response to their land being carved up on a map and potentially given away on a silver platter. They set up roadblocks, halted land surveys, captured a fort, and sent a delegation to Ottawa to negotiate. The result was the Manitoba Act, a document that meant the creation of a new province with promises to protect Métis culture, language, and land. Of course, these promises were never kept. About 2/3 of the Métis Nation at the time are estimated to have left the province in the next few years and head west. There was a mass exodus westward. Riel, meanwhile, was elected to Parliament and then expelled and banished from Canada. He was eventually given amnesty thanks to a speech by Wilfrid Laurier. Then, in June of 1884, Riel was asked to come to the Saskatchewan Valley by a group of Métis trying to clarify their land rights with the ever-expanding Canadian government, who was ignoring them. Tensions grew, land was stolen, and deep anger and frustration led to the Saskatchewan Métis taking up arms, led by Louis Riel against the Canadian government. They were defeated, and Riel was executed for high treason in 1885. Riel's legacy in Canada is profound. Louis Riel Day is held every year on November 16th across the Métis homeland. That's the day of his execution. His actions paved the way for greater Indigenous recognition and self-determination in Canada, though it would not come for many years. Today, Manitoba's newly elected Indigenous Premier has promised to honor Louis Riel with the title of Manitoba's first Premier. Today, the Métis Nation has spread throughout Canada, focusing on preserving their culture and advocating for their rights. Their story, inextricably linked with Louis Riel, symbolizes Métis identity and resilience. Their language, a mix of Old European and Old First Nations languages, is called Michif, though many Métis speak other languages such as French, English, Cree, Saulteaux, and many more. Their flag's infinity symbol represents the immortality of the nation in the center of a blue field, which represents the joining of two cultures. The Métis sash is a brightly colored woven sash. In the days of a voyageur, it was a piece of clothing for both festivities and for hard work. It could serve as a robe, a key holder, first aid kit, washcloth, towel, horse bridle, you name it. They have a rich culture of art whose uniqueness stems from their ancestry and from their struggles as a people. And part of that art is music and dance. You're listening to the Red River Jig. It's a famous centerpiece of Métis music. Violins were expensive at the time, especially, so craftsmen learned how to make and play their own. The fiddle is center stage in many celebrations as a symbol of the joyful spirit the nation grew with. The jig itself is its own unique dance developed by the Métis people, with footwork from indigenous dances combined with the form of European music. Dancing traditionally went from dusk all the way until dawn. You'll find their incredible music during Métis Christmas, or especially Back to Batoche. That's a day celebrating the Northwest Resistance led by Louis Riel, and a modern celebration of Métis culture, heritage, and resilience. Now the question does get asked pretty often, especially nowadays, who is Métis? There is an ongoing controversy surrounding self-identifying as Métis. More and more people are claiming to have mixed heritage and also claiming to be Métis as a result. There's questions about ancestral connections, cultural ties, and the broader understanding of Métis identity. Now you can claim to be Métis, and many people do across Canada and the United States, but sometimes some people are called the other Métis. In general, to be recognized as Métis, there are three main criteria: self-identifying as Métis, having an ancestral connection to a historic Métis community, which is a difficult thing to prove for many people, and being part of a present-day community. Now that said, there is strong debate as to whether or not you need to have a connection to the Red River settlement to be considered part of the Métis Nation and to be accepted by them. I'll link to two different perspectives on this below in the description. And just like that, we've explored a little bit about the Métis Nation. Remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are people born of camaraderie, friendship, and love, who learn to face hardships with the same vigor that they brought to the rest of their lives and their artwork. Louis Riel's leadership continues to inspire the Métis people and all Canadians, emphasizing the importance of cultural preservation, the fight for justice, and keeping promises.